Jesus is the completion of all Old Testament expectations. Jesus is the fruition of the covenant promises. Jesus is the perfection of moral and ethical ambitions of the law. And Jesus is the fulfillment of Old Testament prophetic hope. And Jesus, as we look at his life and his teachings, we can see kind of the echoes of Exodus. We can see the fulfillment of all the relationships that Jesus had with our Bible characters in the Old Testament. And Matthew definitely sees that in the life of Jesus and his teachings. And he begins his gospel in 1:1. That's not where we're going to be today, but he begins his gospel in 1:1 by saying this: "This is the beginning of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham." And so what I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about God's covenant with Abraham, his promise to Abraham, because I think that we'll see the pattern in that promise that is true in Jesus the Christ and his teaching. So you may not know the story well, but God calls Abraham out of his people to be a part of a new nation. Now, Abraham and his wife Sarah have no children, but God tells him, "You are blessed. Your descendants will be greater than all the stars in the sky, more numerous than the grains of sand on the seashore. I will make you a great nation, and from that nation will be a blessing for all the nations of the earth." And so what God tells Abraham is, you are blessed to be a blessing. That's the pattern. And that's not different from Jesus' message to the church on the sermon, in the Sermon on the Mount. And so I want you to think about that pattern. You are blessed to be a blessing. So in our text today, Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16, this is what Jesus says. "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt somehow becomes tasteless, will its saltiness ever be restored? Nah, it's good for nothing except to be thrown out and tread underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket. No, you put a lamp on a lampstand so that it gives light to everyone in the home. So let your light shine among people, that they might see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." We looked last week at the Beatitudes, the blessings that Jesus gives in the kingdom. Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek, blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness. No matter the situation that we find ourselves in, if we are kingdom people, what Jesus says is that you are blessed. In every situation, heaven's blessing reaches down into your life. You are a blessed people. Even when people persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil things against you, you are a blessed people. And as he continues in this transitional passage in the sermon, he says, let your light shine among people, that they might see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. You see, you are blessed to be a blessing. So Jesus uses a bunch of metaphors. I think of them as a metaphor cluster. A cluster of images. And so I think it's worth our time just to walk through those images so that we make sure that we understand them. The first thing that Jesus says is, you are the salt of the earth. Now, I know there are some people in here, there's a few of them, my wife's one, you've got a sweet tooth, right? You like sweet things. Sweet things are good, but they kind of leave an empty taste in your mouth afterwards, and you got to have a Ritz cracker or something to get rid of that bad taste. At least that's my experience. The savory things of life amaze me. So I know that salt is good for things like preserving meat. It's good for melting ice. But what I really love about salt is the flavor. Have you ever noticed that you can put salt on almost anything and it pulls out all the flavor in it? Like, what's a steak without salt on it? I mean, I love steak. And the thing that I love about steak, you grill that steak, that juicy, beautiful steak, and you salt it, and it's like you're not tasting salt. It's the salt just draws all the flavor out of that steak so you can enjoy its richness and goodness. Saute some vegetables. You put a little zucchini, a little squash. This is what I like to do. Fry it up in olive oil, and you got to put the salt on it. When you put the salt on it, that savory taste of the vegetables just fills the mouth like a parade of flavor. When I eat my vegetables and my steak that way, I thank God. I literally do. This is one of my normal prayers. Thank you, God, for not making me a cow. Not because I'm afraid of being on the plate, right? Thank you for not making me a cow, because cows have 4 stomachs and they fill all 4 of them with the same thing, with grass. They eat grass all day. And then they have to eat it again. They chew it up as cud. It just doesn't have it. It's just grass. I can't think of a cow or a bull out in the field going, oh, this grass, it's so lush. It's so amazing. You know, I've got a hankering for some grass. I could go for some grass right now. But how amazing is it that God gave us these multiple flavors to enjoy? So when Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth, he's saying there's something about kingdom people. There's something about the church. There's something about my followers that's like salt, that brings out the best in everything, that flavors the world with godliness and goodness. That their presence in the world will turn people to say, oh, thank you, God, for this flavor. Thank you that I'm not a cow. Thank you that I can taste it. You are the salt of the earth, he says. Another part of the same metaphor cluster, he says, you are the light of the world. You can't really get an appreciation for light if you've never been in the darkness. I mean, I can't remember how many times I hear a bump in the night, a noise. I'm one of those people that, it's probably the most dangerous thing to do is to go check out whatever sound it is. Just let them have it, leave it alone. But I usually think it's one of my sons or daughters messing around where they shouldn't be messing around. I usually think there's something going on that I just need to take care of. And what I've noticed about walking around in the dark is I have feet that attract furniture. Do you have any of you have this problem? I actually have I think it's biological. My pinky toes stick out like this. I don't know if that's because I've done it so much and I've hit so many pieces of furniture that they just grab it. But I can find furniture in the dark with my toes. So I understand that in the dark, I cannot see, I cannot know what's right in front of my face. Last night I went for a little hike. I told my wife it would be a couple hours. I took the full 2 hours and then a little bit. I left at 4:30. I didn't get there till like 5. And then, sunset's at like 5:30. I was hoping to see some owls, and I got lucky. I was blessed. I saw some owls on my hike. But whenever you go out hiking to see owls, it's very likely that you'll be walking back in the dark. And one of the things that I notice about walking in the dark outside is that there is enough of that dusk light, that city light, the sun setting light, to illuminate the way forward. As long as I stayed on the path, I was doing fine. And what was great about last night in particular is that we had a dusting of snow, and so the snow was packed on the trails, on the deer trails and the back trails that I walked. But where the forest was, there was no snow on the ground, so it was like a white path of light. And I just could, even as it got darker and darker, I found a way back to my car. You know, with city light, it's like you're not ever really in the darkness. I didn't grow up in a city with a lot of electricity. I grew up in a capital city, but it was in the days where there wasn't a lot of electricity. I grew up in East Africa. I grew up in Uganda, and in Kampala we didn't have power a lot of the time. It would come and go, and we didn't have a lot of things. We actually had to drive to Kenya to get our supplies every quarter. And those drives on underdeveloped roads and lots of potholes and stuff like that were quite long. In fact, a drive from my hometown, Kampala, Uganda, to Nairobi in those days was a 12-hour trip, which means we would start right as it got light, and we'd always end up getting to Nairobi in the dark. And we were, elementary age kids. I don't know if you've driven with elementary age kids, or if you're an elementary age child right now and you've been on a long drive. There's something that inevitably happens no matter what country you're in, no matter what trip you're going on, whether it be somewhere with a terrible destination or an amazing destination. During the journey, the child's favorite question is, Are we there yet? Right? I mean, we had rules for driving since we did it so much. My sister got the right half of the back seat. I got the left half of the back seat, and there was in the vinyl, there was these two cords that went down the middle. There wasn't an armrest there. I don't even know why it was there. But that was considered no man's land. We were not allowed even to cross into no man's land. It's like we needed a buffer zone so we wouldn't pick at each other on that trip. And as we drove, I would say, are we there yet? And my mom said, nope. Are we almost there? How long? You can ask that question again in an hour. I say, how do I know how long an hour is? She said, count to 60 times. That's an hour. So in my head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are we there yet? And the day would get long, we would stop and it'd just make it longer. But as the sun set and we started to approach Nairobi, it was dark, real dark. Because there weren't street lights, there were no highways. And then I didn't have to ask the question in the end, because on the horizon we saw the glow. And as we come over the last set of hills, you could see Nairobi was one of the biggest cities in the 80s in all of Africa, and it was just amazing. Light. More light than I'd ever seen anywhere else. And there is no way that you could drive into Nairobi and not have that experience of the light of the city beckoning you, welcoming you into the city. So when Jesus uses the term "a city on a hill can't be hidden," he's not talking about a prominent place in daylight. He's still in this metaphor of darkness and light. And what he's saying is, when a city is on a hill with all of those houses and all of those buildings and their individual lights, security lights, lamps, whatever they have, is that it shines out and sends light to the whole region. So no matter where you are, you can just head towards a light and you'll end up in the city. There's the lamp as well as part of the metaphor. So back in the days of Jesus, most lamps were fire. So you have a little fire lamp. And he says, you don't take that little oil or fire lamp and place it under a basket or a bowl or a bushel, right? You take it out and let it shine. So you have to put it up on a lampstand. And then when it's up on the lampstand, so you think about this, you put it in the central part of the house, and most of their houses had a big open space, and living quarters were in the corners. It was like the original open house design. And so when that lamp was lit, everyone in the home could enjoy the light of the lamp. So when we think about Jesus telling us that we are the salt of the earth and the light of the world, he's saying the church, you people, kingdom people, my followers, this is what you give to the world. You flavor the world with godliness. You bring out the best in them. You shine light so that people can see, so that they can know what's in the dark. They don't ram their toes against things in the dark, but they can know the reality of the kingdom. See, all of these metaphors have something to do with each other. Jesus is simply saying, you are a blessed people to be a blessing to the world. So one of the things that we should realize we're talking about is the witness of the church. This is a kingdom witness. In other words, our lives are a witness to everyone what the church is about. We actually reflect the glory of God, so that when somebody gets to know you, they get to know God. Here's the thing that I want to point out right at the beginning as we look at these things. Jesus doesn't say to be salt or to be light, right? It's not a command. Be salt and be light to the world. It's a statement. This is your identity. You are salt. You are light. Have you ever noticed that before? Because I haven't always noticed that. Sometimes I always think, what do I have to do? What do I have to do to be salt? What do I have to do to be light? But what Jesus is saying is, you kingdom people who are blessed by the kingdom, by definition, you are salt and light to the secular world. You see, this is one of the things that I want to point out as we go through the sermon, is it's not about achieving a status. You can't achieve righteousness. You can't achieve favor. You receive the gift of God in your life, which is a blessing, and part of that blessing is that you have a new identity in Christ. We are not righteous because of our works. We are righteous because of our relationship to Jesus Christ, who is righteous. Are we together? You don't become salt and light. You are, if you're in relationship with Jesus, salt and light by definition. I want you to embrace your kingdom identity. You're salt. You're light. Which is why this next part becomes important. Because Jesus as soon as he says you are salt, he asks a question, and it's like he's exploring the absurd, in my opinion. If salt loses its taste, If salt no longer is salty, can its saltiness ever be restored? Is there such a thing as tasteless salt? Isn't the thing that makes salt salt the fact that it has the characteristic of being salty? Can you have salt that's not salty? That seems like a oxymoron, doesn't it? Saltless salt? Is that possible, to have saltless salt? So here's one of the things that I think we can take from this is, don't be an oxymoron. You hear what I'm saying? I'm saying don't be an oxymoron. That sounds good. I'm going to say that more often. Son, don't be an oxymoron. Live out your true nature. Live out your identity in Christ. Don't be an oxymoron. By definition, you are salt. So be salty. Add flavor to the world around you. So the question becomes, is if you are not salty, are you salt? I'm not trying to make you earn your faith here. I don't want you to go back into that trap. But I'm saying this is something that we have to ask ourselves. If we no longer fit the definition of a follower of Christ, are we actually following Christ? Are you with me? I'm not telling you can earn it. I'm just saying, let's look at who we are. This is an identity question. If you are an oxymoron, saltless salt, you may not be a genuine follower of Christ. And then here's the thing that really concerns me about this, and this is why I got to preach this part. Jesus says something that he typically reserves for the wicked when he's talking about their judgment. He says, that kind of salt is good for nothing except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. So I think there's a warning in there. It says to us, like, don't just pretend. This is a warning to nominal Christians. Don't just pretend you're salt when you're not flavoring the world. Don't pretend you're light. So if you understand your identity of light, what sense does it make to put that light under a basket, under a bowl, to hide it away, to tuck that faith away so nobody can see? It makes no sense. The purpose of your faith is that it would illuminate the world, that they might see Jesus through you. Are we together? So sometimes, okay, we're sure we're salt, but now we're saying, I'm just like dimly lit, or I'm a bit hidden. It makes no sense. You can't hide a city on a hill. It's an oxymoron. It's absurd. Saltless salt, dark light. It makes as much sense as a silent witness. Witnesses are not meant to be silent. So as we move through this, we see that the first thing is that our identity is already secure in Christ as salt and light. And therefore we live out characteristically in a way that flavors the world, that brings light to the world. It's absurd to think that we wouldn't do that. And so what Jesus concludes is, this is where it moves from the indicative to the imperative, or from the statement to the command. He says, so let your light shine. Hey, light, you're a light, you're a lamp, let your light shine. So whenever I read this passage, I always go back to like my childhood and Sunday school. We get together for those songs. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this sort of thing. And the kids would have to perform that for the parents. And these songs were complete with actions. And I can remember singing a very repetitive children's song for my parents this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And it was like that was the line again and again, which is good because then you didn't have to forget it, right? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, right? And we definitely were not going to hide that under a bushel. No. We were not going to let Satan, and we'd put our index fingers pointed upright like a candle. We would not let Satan it out. No way, right? We were going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. So I didn't actually realize that I was being discipled in that song. But the message of that song was true. This little light, I got one little light, my life, and I'm going to let it shine. And you know what was cool about that is that we were a bunch of little kids. So there's a bunch of little kids, all of them singing this little. So we all had, there's like 10 of us. We all had our little finger up there, right? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. So I didn't realize how awesome that was until many years later. Because I attended a candlelight service. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those. And at the candlelight service, it was Christmas Eve. And everybody moved to the sides of the worship center. Everybody held a candle, and I think in the middle we lit the candles, and each candle lit another candle till it went all the way around. And the whole church was holding their little light and letting it shine. And I realized, look, this is how one little lamp becomes a city on a hill. See, my little light shining is an important part of the church being a city on a hill. I have individual responsibility, and the church has communal responsibility to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. We are already who we are in Christ. But Jesus wants us to live authentically. Don't make up who you are. Don't try to live a life that you're not. Don't try to impress people. That's not what it's about. Live your faith authentically, and guess what? People will see it. And they'll give glory to God. I love verse 16. Let your light shine in such a way. Your way of life, right? In such a way that people see your good deeds and give glory to your Heavenly Father. How are you living your life? Have you lived your life in such a way that your neighbors see your life and glorify God? I mean, I pray and thank God for my steak. Like, that steak has done its job. But have your friends, your colleagues, your family, your neighbors seen your life like I look at steak and say, oh, glory be to God, look who he's placed next to me in this journey. Glory be to God, look who I have in my life. And it's like God has placed them right here for me. Have you lived your life that way? Because that's what it means to let it shine. Here's one of the things that I want to break down a false dichotomy right here. This is important. Because as we live out our Christian lives, there's two things that happen. There's this great Christian saying, it's attributed to St. Francis of Assisi, although he never said it. Everyone says that he said it. So this saying is, proclaim the gospel or preach the gospel or proclaim the good news at all times. When necessary, use words. So I love that because it says that your godly lifestyle, the way that you work your life in action, right, will be such that people will see that it's real. Actions speak louder than words, and you don't need words. But what I want to say is that words are actually necessary. Jesus focuses on your deeds. Like, your good works will be seen by them, right? I understand that. But works include speech. You cannot explain, people will not know the reason that you live your life the way you live it unless you use words to explain. Are we together? This may be the reason that there's two metaphors here. One, salt. I flavor the world with the way I live my life. My acts of kindness, my acts of compassion, the support that I give, the encouragement I give, the selfless way that I live my life, those are all actions. But in order for them to know, to see, they need light. So I use words to shine light on the actions. The actions give credibility to the speech gives explanation to the actions. They work together. Be bold in your behavior and be bold in your speech. So as I close the teaching for today, I realize that we can look at scripture like this and we can have three kinds of reactions or responses. And I give you the opportunity to actually not just let those things happen in your own heart and your own seat, but I want you to think about your reaction to the sermon, to the scripture. One is that you just ponder it, sit in your chair, and really do nothing about it and let it not affect your life. That's a response. The other response is that you look at all of the characteristics of your life and you think, is my life a saltless salt? Is it a hidden light? Am I not living characteristically as a follower of Christ? Do I not really know Christ? And I'm not trying to put doubt on your relationship with Jesus, but if you don't have it, I just want you to know you don't have it. There's a fine line here. There's some of you that live in a world of anxiety and you wonder, am I really saved? That's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to those of you who you look at your lives and there's no evidence of faith. You say, maybe Jesus is calling me now. And so your response is to repent and saying, hey, I'm going to stop working hard. I'm going to start trying to do it my way. I'm going to stop doing things the way I do it and end up in the mess that I'm in again and again. I'm going to stop letting it be all about me. And I'm just going to let Jesus define who I am. I'm going to let Jesus determine who I am going to be. And I accept his statement about who I am. I'm not worrying about my identity, what people think. I'm just going to say, if you call me salt and light, that's who I want to be. Save me from myself. And there are those of you who are looking at those two options and you're saying, well, I'm a believer, right? I have an identity in Christ. And just sitting here and being unchanged by the scripture doesn't feel right either. Here's the third option. You can stand up, put your finger out, say, I commit to letting it shine. I was in a campus conference for college students when I was a college student, not recently, years ago. It was at a pivotal point in my life. Henry Blackaby was a speaker. Some of you know who he is. Henry Blackaby gave an invitation at the end of the service and said, who's going to let their light shine on their campus? And he did something that made me very uncomfortable. He did a countdown. 20, 19. We had 20 seconds to decide, am I going to be a light that shines on my campus or not? And of course, people were standing up and saying, I think we had to say something like, I'll be a light or something like that. And people were standing up and saying it, sitting down. Stand up, say it, sit down. I was pondering. I was like, as the countdown was going, I'm like thinking about my options. Like, because I realized that it was going to impact the way that I was going to live. I was making a commitment that I wanted to be real. I didn't want to just be one of those people who go to a conference, who go to a retreat, and at the end of the day, when I'm done with that, I'm like, yeah, I want to be saved again, and then forget about it the next day. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just a person sitting in the seat that was hearing the scripture, being moved by emotion, and then going right back to the life I had. I wanted to make sure if I was going to make a commitment, that it was going to be real. And I could hear the count. I was a believer. I could hear the countdown, counting down. We were down to like 11, and I'm like, I just need more time to think about this. And I didn't like the pressure, and I prayed and I prayed. And as we got down to the last seconds, the buzzer beater, right? You could tell what was happening in the auditorium because all those people who had been convicted during the sermon had already given their yes. And what had started out in the first 5 seconds as being very noisy with everyone saying their statements had slowly trickled off to almost nothing. You could hear a pin drop. It went from noisy in 19 seconds, like that. And here we're in the final second. It's as if time stood still. Nobody was saying anything except for Henry Blackaby on his countdown. And in that last second, I stood up quickly, because I had been praying and thinking, and said, I will. And it caught Henry Blackaby off guard. I was like 30 rows back. We had a moment. It's the only moment I share with Henry Blackaby, besides reading some of his books and hearing his thoughts. He paused. It stopped him. He looked up and smiled and said, thank you. And the countdown was over. So I don't wish to do a countdown because that's not my style. But I wanted to share the experience because I know that when you walk away today, the most natural thing to do is going to think some good thoughts over your lunch and be more or less unchanged. I wonder in that room how many people made a commitment and forgot about it right afterwards. I didn't. It wasn't like Henry Blackaby's great speech. And granted, I know that that's not what's happening today. But it was an opportunity that I had with the Holy Spirit that said, look, it's time that I shine. I've got my priorities mixed up in life. I don't want to live my life for me. I was doing pretty good. I was a pretty successful student. I was the president of a fraternity at the time. I was in 16 hours of meetings. I had a first name relationship with the dean of students. I was going for Greek Man of the Year, whatever that is. I thought I was all that in a bag of chips. I would have said I was doing pretty good. But I wasn't making a difference for anything that mattered. And there was a lot of people who didn't even realize I was a believer. And that's not how I was going to live anymore. No. I want to live my life in such a way that the impact Jesus made in my life would make an impact in other people. So, as I pray, if you don't know the Jesus that will change your life and give you a new identity, I give you a chance to come right up here and pray with me after the service. If you know Jesus, I want to ask you to do something really corny because I think you'll remember it later. I'm trying to get you past your lunch, right? Because what happens, we eat lunch, we forget what we learned in church. If you say, I'm going to let it shine, would you just stand up during the prayer and put your corny little finger up like this? Because this afternoon, it's not for me, it's not for anyone else here, it's for you. You'll remember you did it. And then you'll say, help me, Jesus, to live the way I committed to live.